Good morning. Thank you for joining us for the 9th Annual UNSTUCK Conference 2021. My name is Dorcas Karanja, and I'm glad to have you here. Today, we're going to have a very interesting discussion with a great panel of speakers about how you can move from potential to performance. We're going to be looking at the real you, and this conversation was birthed out of the need for us to be able to look back internally within ourselves and be able to draw out who we truly are in order to live the lives that we envision. And for us to have that conversation, I'm joined by Pauline Macharia. Pauline is the Chief Customer Experience Officer of SBM Bank. She provides executive leadership and advocacy for customer experience and business operations that positively contributes to the bottom line. Pauline, karibu, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Dorcas. Glad to be here.
Thank you. We're also joined by Theresa Njoroge. Theresa is the founder and CEO of Clean Start Solutions Kenya, a social enterprise that fundamentally equips and empowers vulnerable children, girls, and women who mostly due to poverty-related issues end up in conflict with the law or imprisoned within the juvenile justice system or criminal justice system in Kenya. And she'll be telling us more about that. And then finally, we are joined by Waihiga Mwaura, who is a 5-time award-winning Kenyan journalist, news anchor, and moderator. He's the first male winner of the prestigious BBC World News 2018 Komla Duma Award, 2015 winner of the Mo Amin Africa Award, and 2012 winner of the CNN Multi-Choice Africa Award. He was also recently awarded the 2021 Media Council Investigative Award. He's a 3-time Media Council of Kenya Awards nominee. Karibuni sana, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So I'll start off with you, Waihiga. And I'll start off with this quote, and I'll read. It says that the graveyard is the richest place on earth. So someone said that the graveyard is the richest place on earth because it is here that you will find all the hopes and dreams that were never fulfilled, the books that were never written, the songs that were never sung, the inventions that were never shared, and cures that were never discovered, all because someone was too afraid to take that first step, keep with the problem, or determined to carry out their dream. And you know, when I heard your story, it's a story that is contrast to this quote. It's contrast to this quote because you had a conviction of what you wanted in life. So you got this job, you got a job in banking, and you quit, and it didn't make sense to people why you quit. And you are very convicted and convinced that there's this dream that you needed to pursue. And you are very convinced that you needed to get into journalism, and you kept looking. And in that time, you started a business. In that time, you tried different things.
I did many things, you're right.
Until you finally, now you're here, you're an award winner. So tell us, how has that journey been?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And I think that I think I had that quote from the late Miles Monroe. I don't know if he got it from somebody else, but you're right in that there are a lot of people that possibly had the potential but never achieved what they were supposed to do on this earth. And sometimes I ask myself, what is it that makes the difference between individuals who walk on this earth with the potential but never quite get to it, and others who, I guess, in a sense, overachieve, not just tick the boxes that they were meant to, but then also achieve other things that you never thought they would get to. And as I grappled with that, I thought to myself, is it their ambition? Is it how they fight fear? And is it their discipline that makes the difference? So for me, I can't say that I was deliberate in the steps of life that I took. I made a lot of mistakes. There are a lot of people that cheered me on and sort of helped me get out when I was stuck. But one thing I know from the very beginning is that there was a hunger in me that knew that I was created for more than the ordinary. Now, I don't know what the extraordinary is or was. I don't think I'm there. I think performance is a journey, not necessarily a destination. But I know for me, there was something that drove me in that journey that you've explained. When I was in university or working at a bank or hustling out there, something just told me, Waihiga, keep pushing. There's something that you're supposed to achieve that maybe not many other people will. But it will also be a harder journey with more critics, more challenges, and are you ready for that? That's a little bit about my story.
Wow. It will be, and you knew that it would be a harder journey, so you were prepared.
Let me tell you, performing is not going to be easy, and that's why you cannot perform in the crowd. You cannot be with, we've said 50 million Kenyans. You cannot walk with them and think that you are going to excel, because the crowd is called the crowd because it's safe to be in there. The fish will all look for the food downstream because it's easier. The river carries you to that downstream location. But if the gold is upstream, how many guys are going to turn around and fight to get where that gold is? So yes, it's a hard, I'm sure my panelists will tell you their stories as well. Whatever they've reached in life, it's because they've made decisions that others haven't.
And you know, Waihiga, it's interesting because to come to Theresa's story, she swam upstream, at least in my view, because Theresa, your dream was to be a banker.
Yes.
And you were.
Yeah.
And you grew through the ranks. I mean, you were growing, and then this thing happened out of the blue.
Yeah.
You got wrongly accused of a fraudulent transaction. It wasn't your fault. And to make it even worse, even when the police came to arrest you, because you got you were arrested wrongly.
Yeah.
Even when they did come to arrest you, they did say that they know it is not your fault, that the transaction happened.
Yes.
And you needed to pay your way out of it, you know?
Indeed.
And so here you are rising up in the ranks within the banking, within the bank sector, which is what you always wanted to do. Then this happens.
Yeah.
Suddenly you lose your job, and then you're arrested, and then you're imprisoned.
Yeah.
For a year.
For a year with my daughter.
With your daughter.
Yeah.
Then you have to come back out and start your life afresh.
Yeah.
So how then do you swim upstream, as Waihiga said?
Yeah. I like what Waihiga says, that the decisions that we make determine the outcome. And he also mentioned that you have to make the hard decisions. There's nothing easy about moving from potential to performance. And comparing the two, being, because I made a switch in my careers from the banking sector, which I really loved and had made a decision to be in, and now comparing that to what I do within the social enterprise. When I look at both, in the banking sector, I made the decision from the what and the how, not really starting internally with the why. Why do I want to be a banker? And most people start from the outside, the what. If you ask, so what do you do? They'll start with the what, the how, but they won't tell you why. Why does this organization exist? Why are we holding an annual UNSTUCK conference? What's the why? When I look at what I do now at Clean Start, I started with the why and then got to understand the how and then the what. So it's an internal journey. That's where you really now get to understand your potential, who you really are. That defines your why. And most people say, I do not know what's my why. I do not know what's my purpose, what's my calling. I use a model called the 3 Ps. And the 3 Ps are, the first one, people. You must start with the people. And you're not called to everyone. You're called to a specific demographic is who you're called to. When you identify and get to know who your people are, you've got to love them, because we were created for one another, to love one another, to serve people. So once you identify your people, then you've got to understand the pain or the problem. What is it you're there to solve for these people? And that's the second P. And then that leads you to your passion. And it's in that passion that the action now comes up. You get to now understand the what and the how. And once you get to understand that, it's from that point that you now start journeying towards performing with excellence. And the mind that gets to understand the why is not the mind that executes the how and the what and the performance. As Waihiga has said, you've got to journey with mentors. You've got to journey with coaches. And I normally always am aware that you become your influences. So along my journey, I have to make sure that I'm removing the dream snatchers and, the hope takers. Yeah, because I'm focused and I know exactly why I'm doing what I do. So it's the decisions you make every single day. As Waihiga has said, it's not easy. It's every single day making hard decisions. But the only way you're going to do that is being very deliberate about it. Yeah.
That's amazing, making hard decisions.
Yes.
And that's something Pauline had to do. Because then what happened with Pauline is that you had 12 years of experience working internationally. You had never been, you had never had an opportunity to work in Kenya, home, which is home for you, in those 12 years. And then suddenly you found yourself in the UK without a job. And you had to move back home. You had to make that hard decision and start, so to speak, from scratch. How was that experience for you?
Wow, it's interesting you bring that up. You really dig deep. I did work in Kenya for 5 years. My dream was to live abroad. My dream was to travel. My dream was to get out of Kenya. Not that Kenya was a bad place. I wanted more. And I felt the more for me was out of the country as a young adult. This was birthed because of my dad. When we were growing up, my dad used to travel a lot to the UK. And every time he came back with gifts. And then I remember at that time, my cousins were traveling, as in they're going to study abroad. And in our house where we lived, there's a staircase. So I always imagine myself coming down that staircase and they're praying for me. They take me to the airport and I'm off to journey. That was, as a young person, that was an impression in my mind. So then when I did get the opportunity, I worked in Kenya for 5 years. And when we talk about accessing the real you, I worked here in Kenya for 5 years. Now, talking about that potential performance, I was a performer. So in those 5 years I worked in Kenya, I was determined to be the best employee. And this is after I studied in America I lived in America for 7 years, but I did not have the desire to stay on. I had the desire to come back home. But when I came back home, I'm like, this is not quite what I want more. So I got an opportunity to go and work abroad. Yes, I worked abroad for 12 years. I worked in, my first posting was in Dubai for 2 years. Thereafter, Singapore for 1.5 years. After that, South Africa. Then after South Africa, I was posted in London. And in London, I lived 7 years. My goodness, it was an exciting journey. Living in this cosmopolitan European country, loved it. I didn't have any qualms about it. People were like, do you miss chapatis? I said, no, there's other food. So you get into the space of discovery. And that's what I'm like, discover what's in front of you. Don't wait for somebody to give you, there's no manual telling you this is what your life is going to be. The only person who has that manual is God. But God is talking to you. Are you listening? I wasn't listening. I didn't know God. I was having a good time. I'm young. So working abroad for 12 years. So after I worked in London for 7 years, there was a financial crash. And during that financial crash, I lost my job. And that was my dream, to work abroad. I was working in London. Now it was snatched. Dream snatchers. I felt like it was snatched. So I said, okay. And at that time, I was now very committed to God, or so I thought. And I started working for a church. I worked there for 2 years in a church. That was a grueling experience, discovering the real you. It really, how do you say? It's like peeling an onion. Because now it's not you, you're serving people. As you said, you're serving people. And I used to be part of the ministry team where I used to pray for people at the front. That was the most scary thing in my life. I'm like, do they know who I really am? And here you're calling me here to do this? This is tough. So we went on with that. And after 2 years, it wasn't working. And I decided now I'm going to go back to corporate. I couldn't get a job. I ended up being homeless for 8 months. Moved into my brother's house, sleeping on the floor on a mattress. Here you're coming from earning big bucks. Now you're humbled. It was the most humbling experience of my life. I remember at one time, I was so broke, I only had £1 to buy chips for a meal for the whole day. And I think, this is definitely not what I planned. And I was surrounded with very good mentors, people who prayed for me, people who walked with me. You need those people who hold you when you're falling apart. And after that, what happened is that I got a job offer to come and work in Kenya. The interesting thing, I didn't recognize the season had changed. I was still wanting to stay in Kenya, in the UK. And it came to a point, I'm like, no, this is where you need to go because this is where you're being called. And I was called back to Kenya. And you have to work hard to climb up. You start from zero. You're starting at 0 at 40 in Kenya. It is not easy. You don't even know you don't know where to go supermarkets and everything. Everybody thinks it's funny. It's not funny. You have to adjust to basics, you know? And the good thing is I have an amazing mother. So I lived with my mother for 3 years as I'm going through my adjustments of learning how to drive again, learning how to work and work with people. And I did that job for like 4 years. And it reached a point in my heart, the real you. I knew I'm done here and it's time to leave. And I got another offer. And that offer again was a higher position. And after that, we went through challenges during that job. After that, I got another position. It went on like that. But what was it that kept me going? The why. Why am I doing this? I understand what I'm doing and I love it. I'm not doing it for a paycheck. So when you're performing for a paycheck, it's not performance. It will end. But if you're performing because you love it and have the passion, it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. So that's my story. Today, yes, I'm the Chief Customer Experience Officer at SBM Bank. Love the job. It has its challenges, but it has an amazing culture, values that I subscribe to. And that makes me going. Yeah, thank you.
And you've mentioned something important, something that I think Waihiga alluded to, that conviction when you know your season is over and you know what you need to do. And you find that a lot of people are socialized to live outside in, and that's why this conversation was critical. We are socialized to live by what we are being told to do, what the media says we do. Especially in Kenya, media is very big on setting the agenda for people's lives, you know. No pun, Waihiga.
No pun received.
So you find that you have to be very deliberate to live inside out, you know, with that conviction. When you have a conviction, even when it doesn't make sense. And that is what you did, Waihiga. You even pursued a career before you even had qualifications for that career, because I think your undergraduate qualifications were in computer science.
BSc.
And here you are. Yeah, another thread. And here you are having a computer science degree, but then pursuing journalism and knocking on every door that is a journalist door. How was that? What would you encourage someone who's out there who wants to pursue a line that they feel and have a conviction that it is what they should do, but everything else around them tells them that that is not the way they should go?
Okay. That's an interesting question. I guess when I was in university, I thought I was going to be the next Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. But a few classes in, I realized that there are other people in the IT field who are not Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, and I unfortunately might be one of them. And so it made me then feel that I need to really figure out what I want to do with my life. And once I finished university, I did a few jobs that were sort of holding the fort for me, at least to look like I'm busy, as I really understand what I want to do. I actually think, and I know this sounds strange, that I went through a form of quarter life crisis, a new term that was introduced the other day. I don't know what other crisis they'll tell us human beings are going through in the future, where I was 25, working, and I'm grateful I had a job, but not really happy with what I was doing. And even my colleagues knew it. I remember when I was working at the bank, I remember one Friday night, we were trying to reconcile our accounts at the end of the day, a long and tedious job that is not made for characters like mine, and the news was on. And I pointed at the screen and I told my colleague, you know, one day I'm going to work there. Wow. I can actually, I can bring him here one day to show you. Like, I told this guy that I don't know what it was. I can't say I was praying or I had a vision. It was just a thought that one day I'm going to work there. He looked at me, he laughed, this scrawny little boy with an afro. I used to have an afro those days. And he thought to myself, okay, it's good to dream. But he giggled, he literally almost, a man giggled. And he walked away like, you know, forget about that. And I remember the first time I appeared on TV, he texted me and he told me, you were serious, that this is what you were going to do. So, well, it sounds easy when you say one day I was at a bank and I was talking like this, and then the other day I was on TV. But between then, I guess the journey between potential to performance, there's a lot of things that happen. And as my two panelists spoke, first of all, both of you have amazing stories. I thought to myself, these guys have great resilience. What they both went through. And for me, I think the journey from potential to performance has a measure of resilience. It's not a straightforward line. And so for me, it was not a straightforward line. It was dropping off CVs everywhere. I remember telling someone that I would sit and watch the news. And at the end of the news, the credits will roll. And somebody told me the last 4 names at the end of the credits are the people who make decisions. So don't look at the first name, which nowadays is mine, but look at the names at the bottom. They're the decision makers. When you send in your CVs, write those names. Make sure your CV gets to those offices. And that actually helped me. And I taught it to somebody else who did the same thing and got a job because of that. And so it's things like that, learning how to operate in your field, a lot of disappointment when you drop off your CV, nobody calls you back and you feel like this isn't working, that exemplified that journey. But along the way, something began to happen to me. In the midst of rejection, a little way forward here, maybe 1 step forward, 2 steps back, a sense of belief began to grow in me. That as much as I may not look or sound like the people I saw on TV, with time, I could grow into that. And so I guess you could say the opportunity met an individual who had been refined, who had prepared, but who also mentally was in a space where he felt, if I get a little doorway into this field, I will excel. And so there are many stories I can tell about experiences that I had that shaped me along that journey. But I've never forgotten how people would look at me, even when I do simple things like moderating in church, and tell me, you look like you are in the wrong field. And somebody mentioned mentors, people who, little voices that are there telling you, keep going. You look like you're going somewhere. Finally, the why question, brilliant question. When I did get into media, a couple of things changed within the first year. So the first thing I thought of was, if I get into media, you always assume that people in media have this huge salary. They never lack for anything. And so I got my first paycheck. It was good for the first month because I hadn't had it before. But you move out of home, you get new expenses, it's not enough. You work, get a pay rise, and immediately new expenses come to tackle that pay rise, as is the nature of life. And you realize, one, the money, sadly, will never be enough. When you see billionaires in court, it tells you that the money is never enough. And so I thought to myself, if the money won't satisfy me, maybe the fame will, you know. People knowing you. You walk on the street, hey, that's Pauline, hey, that's Theresa, hey, that's Dorcas, hey, that's Waihiga. You're like, oh, okay, maybe that will make me feel good. But you know, there are a lot of Kenyans who are also doing well in the media abroad. So when people start knowing me here, your heart starts telling you, but you want to be like those other guys. And then maybe people know you a bit more, but your heart is saying, it's not enough. And one day I sat and realized the money never satisfies, if you really think about it. And the fame doesn't either. And so that is when I got to the point of, why am I doing this? And it's like a revelation came my way that I was put in the media as an ambassador for God. Mission changes from year to year, but I genuinely feel that is the justification. And so part of things that I do, like a media fellowship I'm part of, really make me feel like that is my core purpose for what I'm doing. And it keeps me going when doubts and fear creep in as well. So those are some of the lessons that I've learned in my journey.
Wow. Amazing, amazing. Wow. And I can't help but, just think about I like what you've said, being prepared. You know, there's things that come by the time the opportunity is in front of you. There's the frame of mind that you're in. There's a preparation that you've gone through. There's a process. You have to believe it. Then on the other side, you have the experience that Theresa went through, where after you were released from prison, you have to pick yourself up. You have to recalibrate your mind. There's a stigma that comes with being imprisoned, I can imagine. There's even the disillusionment, because then you had even completely changed your way of life. How then do you reintegrate enough to dream, enough to start an organization, enough to, up to the point you are now? How do you reinvent yourself? How do you recalibrate? What would you tell someone who's out there who maybe their dreams are shattered, or they're at a point where they don't know where to start? How did you pick yourself up and run?
Yeah. I love it when he said that he had a dream. Martin Luther King Jr. had a dream. And he wasn't the only one who was going through that experience. I'm not the only woman who has been wrongfully imprisoned in this country, because when I was in prison, I met thousands of women with their children serving sentences wrongfully. And as Waihiga has said, money is never enough. It's not about fame. You've got to be in something that is infinite. One thing that I learned when I was in prison, because there's something about the valleys, you know, when you're stripped of everything, your titles and everything, because that's exactly what being in prison did for me. It stripped off the title that I had in the banking sector, everything that I had ever worked so hard to achieve, lost everything pretty much. And when you come to realize that real you without all these external titles that you have, what I would say to anyone out there is, don't let the voices of lack, of fear, inadequacies, the stigma, the shame, the embarrassment stop you. Because that's exactly what I did for myself. I can tell you, being in the newspapers, I was actually on Citizen TV as the bank thief. And you can imagine, no one really wants to be with you. You've lost everything. I relate with that £1. You have nothing in your pocket. Your daughter is here crying. You can't afford diapers or food. You're 100% dependent. It's having the faith. It's keeping the dream alive. But most importantly, it's looking around you and saying, not just for me, but for my other sisters, the other women, the other children. And that's why I said it's got to be bigger than you. It's got to be more than money. It's got to be more than fame. It's got to be infinite. I'd like to say that the gift of privilege, the gift of a good education, the gift of good housing, the gift of, good neighborhood, that gift of privilege that you have, what you do with that gift of privilege is to solve the hardest problems in this world. And that's what I keep saying to myself. Will I see the world being more just? Will I see the Kenyan criminal justice system be fair, where we have no bribery with our police and the poor, the vulnerable, not going into prisons? Will I see my dream come to fruition of having some of the prisons in this country closed? Because I believe women and their children belong into societies, especially when they have done no wrong. I might not see the end. I might not see the end. And at all times, let it be infinite. It's got to be bigger than you. I've got to do my best, perform in excellence, and give it the best that I can. Raise other leaders who will keep doing this work beyond my time in this world. Yeah.
Amazing, Theresa. That's really powerful. raise other, so replicate yourself in others so that they can advance the work that you've begun. And that's the power of vision. You know, just being able to see beyond what it is right now. Amazing. It brings me to just think about, you know, in Pauline's journey, when you finally managed to settle back home, back in Kenya, and you got the job, you have grown tremendously within the time that you've worked, and you're very keen on continuous improvement of yourself. When you talk about performance, I think there's a need to maintain momentum, and you need stamina. There's the element of, you know, just being able to pace yourself enough to have longevity so that you can get to where you're going. So in your journey of growth, what are some of the things that you've been able to do to just keep the momentum going, continue to grow, and continue to move from level to level up to the point that you are right now?
You know, success is not easy, but it's also subjective. He just talked about it. We say the fame was not enough. So in other people's books, he's successful, but he's saying it's not enough. Do you understand? So when you're looking for success, you have to define what you're looking for. That goes back to performance. Performance is intentional. And you have to decide who you're performing, who's your audience, who are your actors. So you have to define who are those people around you. And that's why you're encouraged to have a personal board, for example. Who are you accountable to? Both it can be spiritually, your career, family. In family, I can only say I'm accountable to my mother. She's 82 till this day. So we talk. I have a group of friends that I'm accountable to spiritually. That they will tell me, Pauline, that's not good. Then they'll tell you, that one, check me, check. Just walk away. That one is going nowhere. Just walk away. Let it go. And then there's friends who are in the professional sector who we have conversations. We don't talk every day. There's a time when COVID is not doing good for social life, really. It's really not. It's cramping my style, I must say. Because there's a time we had a girls' brunch in my house. And all COVID protocols observed, of course. And it was supposed to be 1 hour. We were there until 5, because now you're being bare. You're baring your soul to these close-knit friends, and you're letting your naked truth come out. That this is what I've been going through, this is what I've been, even me, you know, it makes it easy, the journey. That's one. The other thing is to rise up in the ranks. For me, it has because I've prepared. I didn't prepare with the intention of rising the ranks. Let me just put that disclaimer out there. Like, for example, the first, before I came back to Kenya, I took a short course in B2B, because I was interested in B2B business, how you run business, B2B, business to business. And I took a short course. So when they were interviewing in London for Kenyans to come back to Africa, in my case, come back to Kenya, that is what I pitched, plus my experience. And when I came back, that's the job I got. So when I came back, I was working for a telco company, managing 17 markets. And it was exciting. And it has its own challenges, but you don't look at the challenges. And that's what I'm saying. You have to have that person on board. You guys, you keep cheering cheerers, we call them. You have to have your cheerers who are cheering you on. You take the short courses that you need to take. There's some people opting to take masters and everything. I prefer the short courses because you have more flexibility of doing more that will project you to the next future. So that was one. Even when I wanted to go to the next level, I took a course at Strathmore. So I was advancing myself, continuous improvement. By the way, this is self-funded. Do not wait for your company or your parents or somebody to do things for you. that might stagnate you should the funds not be available. And we're not looking at, I wasn't interested in stagnating. I want to move ahead. So you always have to identify the next place that I'm going to, what do I need? A mentor of mine told me, Pauline, wherever you want to go, the people who are there, do they know you exist? That was a checkmate for me. I'm like, Like he was saying, you look at the the scripts and like, these are the guys. Do they know that you exist? You have to make yourself visible. If you're an artist, are you going to all the different what are they called? Exhibitions. You know, so how are you making yourself available? It takes networking. I tend to be an introvert, but I have to be an extrovert. My job is an extrovert job, but I'm an introvert. If you want catch me on a nice Saturday, I'm at home reading a book or something. So it's going the extra mile for yourself. Getting out of the rut will require that you decide, I need to get out of this. And these are the 3 things I need to do. What are the 3 things you must do? You must prepare. You must have what we call, the second one is change agility. Are you agile enough to adapt to your environment? And then the third one is adaptability. Are you positioning yourself to adapt? What I did in myself in growing the career, especially when I was young, I always made myself adaptable. So if there is a project, I volunteer myself. I don't wait to be invited to the project. So I'm not chasing the money. I am chasing recognition. And what's in it for me is not the money. It's the value that I'm bringing. So what value are you bringing to this project? And make sure that you're either well-learned in terms of reading. Internet is your friend. Google is your friend. Then the next thing, I wanted more out of it. Like now, I'd like to get into boards. So what did I do? I went and did corporate governance course as a start. So I took a lot of preparation. And as Theresa was saying, she needed to prepare. I'm sure she prepared. You prepared in terms of what you need to do, in terms of understanding that environment is key. Once you understand the environment, then you decide which route you're going to take. Again, all these things are personal decisions. There is no one who's going to come and tell you go this way or take this way. You may have your encouragers and everything, but deep down, you're the one who's going to walk that journey. So what do you need to do? So making that decision, preparing, and as I was saying, part of my preparation, taking a corporate governance course, because now I envision myself in the future. It's not here yet, but I do envision myself sitting in boards, in various boards in Kenya, because then you need to give back to what you have. Another thing, when we talk about this, part of giving back is something that I think everyone should do. When I came back from the UK, I saw there was a need with the youth. So I started going to speak to them in high school. I prefer the high school group, especially the girls, to give them hope. Because it's time to make sure that they know that they can also make it. It doesn't matter what side of the tracks you come from. We don't have that anymore. If you have that mental attitude that I live on this side of the street or I live on that, that's how we grew up. Like, do you live on the right side of town and things like that? We don't have that anymore. We are one. It's a society that you must give it. So giving back to schools, going to speak to them and giving them hope. And it's very encouraging when you receive a WhatsApp message from the girls and say, I graduated. Thank you for mentoring me. Thank you for speaking to us. I've graduated, now I'm in university. I'd like to meet with you. I want you to continue to mentor me. But sometimes time doesn't allow. But you continue engaging with them. You've brought hope to someone. What brought hope for me during my journey of transition to Kenya after my difficult or going through that challenge time in the UK, what brought hope for me was really spending time in the Word of God. I cannot attest that to anything, because when you lose everything, Theresa, you know, it humbles you. Humility. Let's not get caught up in our success, fame, money, etc. Stay humble. Stay humble. That's one thing I've learned. And always be on the lookout on who can you help. I remember there's a time I was driving and I went to a gas station at Westlands. And you know, as you're waiting for your car to be fueled, there's always somebody selling something. So we always roll our windows. This gentleman, I don't know, for some reason my window was rolled down, and he comes to me and says, I'm selling house slippers. I'm like, why? So I started having a conversation with this young man. The young man is, he's destitute, he didn't have parents. He grew up in the streets. And through selling those slippers, he's managed to take himself through school. But he needed more money to continue. I said, okay, give me 2 pairs. Now, because you send M-Pesa, they have your number. That boy sends me messages every week. Madam Pauline, how are you doing today? Have a blessed day. He said, you impacted my life. He sent me a message last week and he said, you impacted my life. I've now graduated. I was so touched. So with all the drama that's going on in Kenya with COVID and etc., that's what's important. So somebody asked me, how come you don't know this on TV? I rarely watch TV. So when you're not doing that, there's so many other things that you're doing, that you're touching people's lives. I believe in Kenya, what we need is to touch people's lives in our day-to-day. That makes a difference. That will trigger somebody to chase their performance, to unlock their potential. Because everybody was born with potential. There is no one who was not born with a potential. There's something God put in us, all of us. By the way, we're not created by apes. We were created by God. For those who have those scientific conversations, God created us with potential. There's some who realize their potential early, but they don't have people to surround them, to shield them. Because sometimes you can get into your potential too early and you don't know how to handle it. And then you fail. And then it becomes very hard to pick yourself up. That's why you find young people doing drugs and things like that. They don't know how to pick themselves up because they remember the fame. Now, as an adult, being resilient, as Theresa said, is something that it's here. You either give up. I always used to ask, the God who did that then, he can't do it now. I can't get out of this. That's always the question that I ask. The other thing you must have, besides preparation, you must have mental stillness. Not stillness, quiet, but chuma, for lack of a better word. You have to have mental stillness because the doubts will come. The fears will come. When the fears are loud, I always used to say they're like drumbeats of Africa. They never keep quiet. So you have to overcome those fears that keep speaking to you. Listen to the still small voice and discover, what is this little thing that I must do? And run with that besides the noise. Another thing you must do in terms of moving from potential to performance is shield the white noise. White noise is the TV. Sorry.
Not too much, please. We need the jobs.
When I say TV is now, we find the distractions that you find people are trying to live like the movie stars. Okay, those movie stars are paid to do that and to live like that. And they work for it. They prepare for it. They go to a gym. They work out. They take lessons, speech classes. You can't try and be like a TV person if you have not trained to be that person, or if you're not called to be that person. You can't do copy-paste. Theresa, nobody can do copy-paste of you, even if they tried. Nobody will want to go in your shoes, in your journey, but they want to know, they want to get to where you are. It's a journey. So preparation is key. And it has so many aspects around it in terms of how you prepare. Preparation also includes who you're surrounding yourself with. That's part of your preparation, because those are the voices which will be speaking to you. What I discovered is that I'm an alumni of where I went to high school. I don't know many people because they've been on a different journey and so have I. So we haven't been on the same journey. I've been on a different journey. I can't stop my journey because of what is going on here. My message here is, don't stifle the journey you've been on. I tried to stifle my journey because I couldn't fit in. I was trying to fit in with everybody else. But then I'm stifling what God has put in me. And once I realized that that's the journey to the real you, I'm not going to stifle it. This was my life. This was my career. There's no shame in it. Yeah. It actually makes me stronger because I can stand up and say, I have been able to achieve this because I was resilient. And also that all well said and done, I could not have done it without God, honestly.
Amazing, amazing story. And I like the gradual growth, you know, just because it builds capacity in you, it builds your muscle, so you're able to contain more, it builds your capacity. And you've mentioned the real you, and it's something that I just wanted to bring out in Waihiga's story. When you were a sports journalist, you had to get to know the people, you had to interact with them. And so you got to know officials, you got to know the people in the sports industry in Kenya. And you still had to maintain the integrity of proper reporting. And I know you were conflicted when you did the investigative story, where you exposed, I think, some money that had been stolen. Tell us about that. How do you access? So you're this person, you've already formed these relationships with the people that you're working with, but you need to keep it true to yourself, true to your values, maintain integrity in the process. How was that for you?
I mean, I think to give you a background, I remember I told you when I joined media, I then began a new journey of discovery. So getting into media was a journey of discovery, which ended the first day I reported to work. You then get in and a few things happen here and there, and you realize the money, the whatever you thought was the motivation is not really the motivation. And so when I then really discovered my purpose there, one, to serve God, but second, to serve people, is when I realized that media is a public service. It's just that we're not elected. But every day, people vote for us by tuning into our stations. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do, they will switch channels, which is vote against you. And so that has been my motivation, I would say, for the last 11 years that I've worked in media. I have always asked myself, at the end of the day, am I speaking for a few or am I speaking for the majority? And what do the majority feel over a particular issue? And one of the ways I realized one can make a difference in this country without being a leader in my field is to spotlight injustices, problems, corruption, or anything else that you feel Kenyans would be passionate about. And so I think around 2013, 2014, I started getting really interested in investigative journalism just because of the impact it has and because I think there are a lot of things to investigate in the world and in this country as well. And in 2016, I was in Rio de Janeiro for the last Olympics. And I saw a lot of things there that I was not happy about. But I also realized there was a culture of silence amongst athletes who felt that if I speak, I'll be victimized. And I would say to some extent amongst others who also should have blown the whistle, but did not. And sometimes part of moving from potential to performance is deciding that you're going to be the one to stand up. And when you stand up, you will be victimized. People will tell you that, you think you're the first one who came and spoke out, and you could occasionally get threats as well. And so when I came back to Kenya, and Kenyans have heard about all these things that have been happening in Rio, and they're like, why are we not hearing about this thing? I came back and I had been silently working on something and I released it on a Sunday. And it was explosive. From my journalism career, that was a major high because I think for the first time you had Parliament talking about it, and the next day the Sports Cabinet Secretary just cancelled a lot of things. And then the DCI come to take my testimony of what had happened. And I realized, wait a minute, okay, this isn't what I had signed up for. This is getting real. But I can say this. When you ask yourself the why, sometimes it can be scary, even to the point of fear of your life, because you wonder, what if I tread on the wrong toes? But then I also ask myself this, listen, if you don't speak up, who will? And so that's part of my motivation. One, I know my life is in God's hands. My days are in God's hands. He alone knows where I'm supposed to be, when I'm supposed to be. And I think both my panelists have alluded to that, both in the valleys and the mountains as well. So I can trust him if this is where the journey is leading me. But secondly, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, the move from potential to performance could require that you disrupt things, do things that others have not done. And that's the journey that I've been on in little ways and in big ways. As a sports journalist, many in the field like covering the events and the results. For me, I thought that wasn't enough. I thought Kenyans are already tweeting about results. What am I doing differently? When I look around at those in my space, if you were to come and pick one of us, why would you pick me? What do I do that stands out? And so that's something that bothered me and kind of led me then into the field of investigative, because I felt like few were willing to go that way. And let me tell you, the path less taken, there's a reason why it's less taken. But there is a benefit at the end of it all. If you can withstand the pressure and the naysayers and everything else, that will get you there. And so when I was there, that's what I did. And even now, it's a path I continue to pursue, because I feel that, one, if you won't, who will? But secondly, it is what will get you to where you're supposed to be. But I want to say one last thing. And she alluded to it quite a bit. Moving from potential to performance is not easy, because everyone is trying to do it. I believe if you talk to many people, they're telling you, my plan is this. And we've been nurtured by social media and YouTube to talk great things about what we want to do with our lives. But the thing that separates those who do and those who don't, in my view, is discipline. Let me tell you, we can sit and watch motivational videos all day. This is a motivational talk we are doing that people are going to sit and watch. And someone will leave there thinking, wow, I love what Pauline said. I love what Theresa said. I feel motivated. Look for them 1 year later. What has changed? Was it a one aha moment of joy and a nice feeling about themselves? Or did they put in steps? I recently joined the gym. Look for me after 1 year. When I get to the gym, I want to say 6:30, but it's closer to 7. I find people who are leaving the gym. I ask myself, what time did this person get up? Where do they work? Where you sleep earlier? So I ask myself many questions, and it challenges me. There is a level of discipline they have achieved that I am yet to. And maybe a year from now, if we measure biceps, and I don't know, I don't look at my biceps for now, there might be a big difference between what they have and what I have. The hard job in moving from potential to performance is the discipline to keep at what you have made a decision to do, even when it is boring, tiring, cold, raining, whatever it is. I think that's what makes the difference. But I don't know how many of us are able to do it. On the gym one, I'm trying.
And it's in levels.
Yeah, and it's in levels.
Levels of discipline. Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's true. There's it's similar to there's a video that Michael Jordan did that says, maybe it was my fault for making it look easy, for making it look like there was no effort coming from me. Because I think a lot of times when we see the end product, we don't appreciate the process it takes. But there's always a process to the end product, and the process requires discipline. Amazing. So just to finally come to you, Theresa, one of the things, when you think about potential and the real you, there's an element of being able to identify your abilities, your skills, your talents. How do you know what is really inside you? And I find that sometimes sometimes we may try to approach it from the perspective of trying to define it, but the best way is to learn through experiences, through being exposed to different opportunities. So what did your journey, that whole journey that you went through, what did it expose you to? What did it expose about yourself to you?
First was that you've got to intentionally keep growing. Why? Because when you get the revelation and you have the vision, you know exactly where you want to get to. And you know very well, it won't take just you. The level you are at and where you want to go to, as Waihiga and Pauline have stated, will take the effort of your influences. Who are you surrounding yourself with? Who are you accountable to? Which books are you reading? What courses are you taking? The discipline that Waihiga has spoken about. All those contribute to moving you from your potential, from the mind that received the dream, the mind that received the vision, to the mind that executes, to the excellent performance. And I want to clearly state that you can't serve two masters. You either choose to be mediocre, to be average, to be in your comfort zone, or you choose to put in the hours, to put in the work, so that you can keep growing your muscles and learning and achieving to the greatest, highest vision that you could ever be. But you can't serve both. A lot of people want comfort. A lot of people want to be with the crowd. A lot of people do not want to be singled out. You've got to use your voice. You've got to step out of your comfort zone. You've got to choose one, but you can't be both.
Wow. Amazing. Amazing. I feel like we've just started this discussion, and unfortunately, we are coming to the end of it. But before we close, I'm going to invite our panel to each give a parting shot of moving from potential to performance and accessing the real you. So I'll invite Pauline, if you could please give your parting shots.
Wow. My parting shot would be, you have potential. For you to realize your potential, you need to understand who are you, where are you going, and then when you identify that, what do you need to get to where you're going? You have potential. Discover it. Have the discipline to make sure that you're pursuing it. It is not easy. You have to ask yourself, are you going to live a mediocre life? Or are you going to live a life of great impact with excellence? The choice is yours.
Thank you, Pauline. Over to you, Waihiga.
Thank you. I think speaking about moving from potential to performance is difficult because I am still on the journey. So I don't have all the answers, but here are a few quick thoughts. I think one, moving from potential to performance requires disruption. And there's a price to that. First, you need to disrupt who you are. Your very selves need to be disrupted if you want to be a better, fitter you, or whatever it is that you've set out. And even the environment that you want to change will require that disruption as well. So be aware of that and be ready for that as well. I think also moving from performance or potential to performance will require a measure of rebellion. When we were growing up, we were told that rebellious children always get in trouble. But out there, the reality is people have standards they have set for you. And those standards could keep you more in the potential realm than performance. So a measure of rebellion in achieving your dreams might be a good thing. I always look up to God because I believe He has helped me to begin the journey of moving from potential to performance. But one last thing, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, everyone complained about how the whole world changed. But surprisingly, there were a few people who, in a sense, had forecasted that if ever something like this was to happen, how would we perform? What are the challenges in your field, in the space that you're passionate about for the next 5 years? Do you have the solutions, or are you going to be grumbling like everyone else? Those are some of my thoughts as I think about this amazing topic and an amazing discussion that we've had.
Thank you, Waihiga. Over to you, Theresa.
Yeah, I love that this is the 9th annual UNSTUCK Conference, because 9 is the birthing number. And so we're birthing something new, something fresh. And today is the first day of the rest of our lives. Let us not allow the smallness or our comfort zone stifle the greatness that is within us to achieve our destinies. May we remember and realize that the Lord God Almighty has sent us for a very specific why, and may we do whatever it takes to achieve that which we are here to achieve. And as Dorcas started and quoted Miles Monroe, that the graveyard is one of the richest places. May your graveyard not be rich at all. May you die empty because you really strived for the best and passed on the baton to the next generation best possible way you could. Thank you.
Amazing. I've really, really enjoyed this discussion. I wish we had more time. I feel like there's still more, but I know there'll be a next time. So thank you so much for sharing from your heart, for sharing your stories. I hope that you picked something, learned something, are going to implement something. And it's interesting that Waihiga pointed out that what you can sit and listen and be motivated, but then what do you do with that information that you've gained? So it's important that you move a step forward and do something. And I know after this session, we'll be having some activities and tools that will be shared with you for you to be able to engage with yourself, to be able to access who you are and drive from potential to performance. Thank you so much. We were joined by Pauline Macharia, the Chief Customer Experience Officer at SBM Bank, Theresa Njoroge, the founder and CEO of Clean Start Solutions Kenya, and Waihiga Mwaura, a 5-time award-winning Kenyan journalist, news anchor, and moderator. Thank you for joining us. Back to you, Jackie and Eric.